I am going to go over where rubber meets the road, specifically referring to the Fast and the Furious. Now, the term the Fast and the Furious of late has been used to describe an operation with the CIA or DEA where they try to funnel guns through Mexico. However, it holds very stark comparisons to the movie series Fast and the Furious. So, maybe you want to know, how can a movie from 2001 that began in 2001 have anything to do with real life in 2010? So for the purpose of this speech, the rubber will be the movie, and the road, more substantial, more concrete, will be the case in 2009, 2010. Now, the comparisons between the two, to me, I really enjoy taking a look at it because I've told you before, I feel like politics are a completely gray area. There's nothing black and white about it. That's the way they want it. So, to me, looking back at 2001, Fast and Furious was based on a covert operation to implant a person in a team that was stealing electronics off of diesels. So they would pull up and do a real elaborate scheme to get into the diesel and steal the electronics. I believe they got about $5-6 million on the first hit. So people started paying attention. What happened later was the person that infiltrated the team performed so closely with the team, as commonly happens, that he became more than just a member of the team. He became an essentially functioning part, but he bought into what they were doing and why they were doing it. So he no longer had the objectability to segment himself from what was going on and what he was participating in as fact or fiction. He bought into it. So the contrast to that, in 2010 is when you look at the covert operations planned by the DEA here, is that they were going to put out some guns. They wanted to find the straw purchases, as the term they used, to actually find the person who bought the gun and find the person who's buying the gun from them, get them both together, make the arrest, close the case. Now, for me, it was a struggle to find the connection between these operations with the DEA all the way to Attorney General Holder, who was just held in contempt of court, in contempt of Congress recently. I couldn't put that together. To me, there's so many layers to get through to involve the Attorney General. But what happened was, everybody at a certain level wanted to do it one way, the way they've always done it. An Attorney General's office or some of his people came in and said, no, what we're going to do is let these guns move, track them where they go, and make a bigger, more substantial case. So they were going for the big picture. The big picture, one-time shot, and they felt like they had everything laid out, and they just had to let it run, and everything was going to work out, and that didn't happen. So what took place later was, in the case, magically, information began to be derived that was accurate. But it was information that shouldn't have ever been in the public, but it was there because the people at the low level weren't being allowed to do their jobs and they wanted the public to know about it. So they spoke about it. And that information led to a lot of questions, a lot of people looking closer at the situation, trying to evaluate what are you thinking, what are you doing, and why are you doing it. Long story, kind of short. Later on, some of the guns were already turning up at crime scenes. They were already knowingly using these guns to do what guns do, kill people and enforce things or whatever that may be. So they knew it so profoundly that when the Senator Giffords got shot in Arizona, that when she was actually shot, that they were very concerned that one of the guns that shot her were part of this case. That's how widespread the guns were. That's how uncontrollable the situation was. They were highly concerned and very glad that it was not one of their guns. So what ended up happening at the very end of the process, or where rubber really hit the road and things started cruising to where they are today, is a man who was one of the border patrol agents was killed. And one of the guns that were used in that situation was from the Fast and the Furious gun campaign. So what we had now was we watched these guns that were allowed to float now come back and take a life, and all of a sudden, since it's an American life or a U.S. life, now it's significant. Now, I don't know why it wasn't significant with the hundreds of cases they knew about before, but all of a sudden this was the panic button. This was where the rubber met the road. This is where it really started on the track as it is today. So, covert operations were present in 2001, movie, fiction, and they were thoroughly present in 2010, although this is not fiction. what you'll find at the end of it is, through both situations, that there was a tumultuous implementation of nothing. I mean, it was just like, hey, let's go for it. This is what we're going to do, and everybody said, yeah, let's do that. Nobody looked at it close enough to define how you're going to do it. Nobody took the time to say, these are the checks and balances we'll have in place. And ultimately, it was kind of left as a free-for-all. And ultimately, there are a lot of political lives lost. There are a lot of personal lives lost. And that no one's really concerned about anything until that point, until that man was killed. So when you look back on 2001 in the movie, that guy, he just did what he wanted to do. I mean, he did what he felt like he had to do. He told his superiors, hey,